Hi everybody, thank you for joining us today. I just wanted to take a couple of minutes at the start of this training, and obviously Simon will talk you through using Wagtail, which is the content management system that we're using for New Connect. But I wanted to just talk a little bit about the support we're providing to you as editors, and also things to think about when you're creating content for Connect. So this training session will form the basis of your training for Wagtail, but what we will also provide is a recording of this session so that you can look back as a reminder, but also some shorter video snippets. So how to log on, how to add documents, the kind of something you can watch in a couple of minutes rather than having to watch the whole demonstration through again. And also what we're looking to introduce onto Connect is an editor hub where we'll hold those things and other useful information for you. And what we'll look to set up is a quarterly editors workshop. So we'll all get all of the workshop, all of the editors together and go through if you're finding kind of common issues, or if there are if you've got ideas for enhancements and other things like that, we can pick those up on a regular basis, and also troubleshooting, picking up themes, just generally trying to create a bit of a network amongst us where we can help each other and help answer questions more quickly. So that's what will be on offer in terms of the support that's available after today. We've also got a dedicated Connect inbox, and you can message into there at any point. We'll make sure that you've got the email address for that. And then in terms of content, what we're hoping to do with New Connect is make sure that it's relevant for as many staff as possible. And you can help us in that by making sure when you're adding content, you've got the user in mind. So what does a staff member who is looking at this want to find out? And there is it's quite easy to think I'm going to try and tell them everything about our team and what we do, but try and get that really key information. They've come to my page because they're looking for X. Give that information to them as quickly, as succinctly as you possibly can. So just have them in mind. We don't need to You don't have to have reams and reams of content on Connect. It's kind of keep it short, keep it snappy, easy to read. Think about the whole range of the CUH family. Keep language very simple. Try not to use the jargon that you might be used to using within your own team, so that somebody can really understand and act upon the information on your pages. What we don't want to do with New Connect is for it to not continually evolve. We want to make improvements, so please feedback improvements if you find something that you think would be something that would really improve your experience or the experience of other editors or users. Let us know. One big change that you'll see from this Connect, for those that were editors on GOS, we are trying to make sure that documents are held on Merlin where they meet the Merlin criteria. So if it's a trust document, policy, procedure, it should be on Merlin, and we'll link to it from Connect. We don't want to end up in a position where we've got versions of documents on Connect and versions of documents on Merlin. Merlin is our single source of truth for our trust documents, so the default is for it to go there. There will be instances where a document doesn't meet the Merlin criteria and it's still something you want to make available, and that's absolutely fine. And we will, as editors, will help you make those decisions and guide you in the right place. But just I wanted to pick that up early because I know it's something we've talked about as we've been developing Connect. I'll stay around and help answer any questions that come through on the chat, and I'll hand over to Simon for the demonstration.
Thank you, Tony. Okay, so I'm going to take this demonstration from the very start, the initial login. That we've got mainly two ways of approaching the initial login. You can either use the browser address bar and just add in a / and the word admin, hitting enter. That will take you to this login page. Alternatively, going back to this starting point, we can go to the popular apps panel on the home page, click on view all apps, And then using this sort of alphabetic jump menu, we can either go to W for Wagtail or C for Connect. So it's represented, the Wagtail login's represented in both of these places. So if we click on C for Connect, we get to Connect. We look through the list, we see Connect Wagtail Admin. Click on it. They're all taking us to the same point, which is this login page. Now, all users typically are going to be using their nhs.net email addresses as their username. For me, for this training case, I've got a test account or a training account that I'm using. So mine's looking a bit different, but for everyone else, it will be, you know, first name, whatever your email address is at nhs.net as the username. So when I log in, I'm just going to minimize my recent edits because I'm assuming that for pretty much everyone who's logging in now for the first time, they're seeing more or less a blank landing page dashboard like this. And I'm going to take you through each of the elements of this dashboard, starting at the top, that we're seeing statistics, really some statistics of pages and images and documents that we've got on the site. Now there's sort of two distinctions here. You can see the page count is actually pretty low. This is just going to reflect the pages that you have editor permissions for. So it's going to be different for everybody. At the moment, we're all set up and configured just to use some training pages. So it's really limited. We're only seeing 2 pages here. For images, we're seeing 203. So this is globally across Connect. So we're seeing beyond just what we've got configured for the training pages, we're sort of seeing a global count. And the same here applies for documents, 790 documents. That's well beyond anything that we've got set up in the training environment. So this is everything that we're seeing across the intranet at the moment. Just a word on the documents. We're looking to really bring this number down. At the moment, we've kind of done a bit of a lift and shift of quite a large number of documents from old Connect to get them onto new Connect. But there's going to be an ongoing undertaking to reduce this number, to work with editors like yourselves to kind of get them reviewed and see, should these be hosted? Could these be hosted on Merlin? Because we want to really have Merlin continue to be positioned as the source of truth for trust documents. And we've certainly found historically with old Connect that we were seeing duplicates and they'd be sort of falling out of sync with versioning, where we perhaps have a document on Connect that's also represented on Merlin. And we're certainly going to look to remove that duplication, but there could also be a whole bunch of documents that are hosted on Connect that aren't on Merlin and really should be or could be. So we're kind of going to have an ongoing process to get those on there. So we'd look for this number, probably in the near term, it is going to go up, but over time, we certainly look for to reduce this down. And I'm going to take you through the left-hand panel, the blue panel on the left-hand side, which have got all our sort of administrative functions. So this is the thing that you'll come back to when you're wanting to navigate through or to see, you know, some of the structure and the administrative side of your pages, rather than getting into the sort of actual elements of content. And then I would start from the top and I'll work down. So we've got this initial search button box that we've got here, which if you've only got a few pages, you're probably not going to find a lot of value to it. It becomes more useful when you do actually have a number of pages that you're editing or have got responsibility for. And rather than sort of navigating or browsing or drilling down to a particular page, you can kind of remember a key element from its title, and you can type that into search and it will bring that up into a filtered list basically, and you can jump straight to it. If we click on here, this is the next one down is pages. This is where you would actually just, you know, drill into the page and get through it and find what you're wanting. At the moment, this is really shallow. So we've got like a parent page called the training demo homepage, and then it's got a single child page. So navigating's, you know, not a challenge for this. But if this child page itself had its own child pages, children, descendants, and they themselves had descendants, it can kind of get quite, you know, there's multiple layers to it. And I'll be clicking on this and then it would be expanding out and I'd click onto another one. I'm saying expanding out, not this panel, but sort of my search or the pages that I'm looking at would be expanding out. As it is, I've just clicked on it now and I'm bringing up something that I'm going to come back to and look at in more detail, but that would be a way to browse to your particular page. But like I said, the alternative would be if I was, actually I'll type in demo now, and actually we've probably got a few demo pages that are going to be returned, but we can see I've typed in demo into search, and this is the page that I just looked at and just browsed to via this panel. Excuse me. But you can see the search has it's worked globally across the intranet. So it's actually pulling back every page that has demo, maybe in the body of it, so not just in the title. And you can see as you hover over it, I'm sort of moving through these and I'm getting the option of view draft, a little box here that says more. Excuse me, it's showing that I can make a copy of the page, or I can look at that page's history, or I can view it. So it's fairly limited in what I can do with it. And basically that's because I don't have permissions to do anything to these pages. They're not mine. They've shown up in search, but I can't accidentally edit it, delete it, do anything, because it's not a page that I have permissions to. When I get around to the one that I do have permissions to, hover over it, that's when I'm seeing there's more options here. I can edit it, view the draft, which is as above with these others. I can add a child page, this more box, I can move it. So I might have created this page, under a parent somewhere, and I've subsequently decided this would be better located somewhere else. So that is the move option. Copy, as the name suggests, I might find that, look, the general structure of this page I'm quite happy with. It's got elements that I like. I want to copy it and use it as my starting point. We wouldn't look for you just to have a duplicate of the same page that presents exactly the same information. There'd be a real question as to why that was happening. It should just be the one page that is perhaps pointed to from other locations, but you might find that, it's got the bones which you're happy with. Use the copy and then you change the content elements of it. So that's what you can see if you've got permissions for a page. So even if you're seeing loads of other pages and you're suddenly kind of going, what are all these? These aren't mine. Hover over it and you'll quickly orientate yourself and kind of recognize, okay, you're just seeing a bunch of other pages on the site, but they're not ones that you can do anything with. So that was brought up by search, which worked globally. The pages we can click in through, we can get to individually. Images that we click on here, these are yours. These are sort of images that will be in your collection. At the moment, we're all set up to use a training collection, but when your permissions go live or sort of put in place for your live pages, you will then have a corresponding collection that you'll be able to manage and upload images to. Documents is going to be the same thing that I click on it. It's a collection. It will go by the same name. Basically, you'll have whatever your editor group is called, that will be the name of this collection that you'll use. And you can kind of see it here and manage the content of it, really. You're seeing this add image button up the top with sort of the same thing for the documents. The layout's sort of the same. It's across both of them. So the approach is the same. I just clicked on that green button, add document, and then we're saying, okay, choose a document from your computer. If I click on this, this is going to pop up probably outside of the screen view that I'm presenting at the moment, but it's a familiar Windows box. We see it all the time if we're attaching something to an email, to a Word document, anything like that. So it's using a familiar sort of style of working that we use across the sort of Office suite of products here at the Trust. So as an editor, you'll have permissions to manage these collections, to add things through them. You could choose to delete it just as part of your curation, your maintaining of this content. We've just dropped stuff in here for training purposes. You can see here I've got the option to delete it. I might be wanting to change some of the text that's around it, or perhaps less so with images. I'm just going to exit out of this and go to documents. But if I was, say, I had a version of a document that needs to change, I want to keep the link. I want to, the title's the same. Test document's not a great title for this instance, but just say we keep the title the same, but we want to update the underlying version rather than creating another document with a similar title or just a version change in it. It's just update the underlying document itself. So you choose a new file, version 2 could be uploaded, and the title, wherever it's used across your pages, remains unchanged. It's got a more current version underneath. And that's what you as an editor will do and sort of manage through these elements, the images and the documents. Touched on already about documents, we're looking to reduce them. So I think everything that you're uploading, you need to have the question of, could this be on Merlin? And kind of start the process of getting it on Merlin if you haven't already. And then if it can't be on Merlin, so have the case or the understanding of why it can't and why it's not appropriate in that environment, because you're going to get questioned. We're going to need to understand it and work with you to make decisions on either keeping it on Connect or having it hosted somewhere else more appropriately. Images as well. I think there's not obviously an equivalent. There's not Merlin or anything for images, but I think you as an editor will need to ask yourself a question: what does this image provide? Like, what information is it conveying that helps the user on their sort of experience of your page? So rather than just think, well, you think it looks cool, therefore you want it there, it should serve a purpose. So I think that goes to what Tony's saying as well, really keeping the end user in mind and sort of thinking of what's the value of the thing that you're putting onto your page. And that's another thing that I think we're expecting to just improve on over time, because, you know, we'll work with you, and our ability to do it as the admins of the site and yours as the editors will just improve over time, and we'll increasingly improve our best practice. So moving down to reports on the left-hand side, these initially, I don't think they're going to provide much value for you. They're available to all of us. We can see them, but workflow tasks, that's typically, I think, going to be around the admins that will find some value from it. We'll see workflow mentioned or kind of appear later on once we submit a page for publishing for approval. You submit to moderation, and then it populates into your workflow. Really, you're going to see that on your dashboard. Like, that's really where you're going to use it or have visibility of it the most, but you can also generate some reports here and look at things here. But like I said, we're not anticipating that's going to be particularly useful for us as editors to begin with. Aging pages over time will become useful. Excuse me. I think, you know, we're wanting to really work on keeping the content current. So if this will be a tool that you can maintain the currency of your own content, you can look at it and say, right, what are my pages? When were they last reviewed? And it could be useful then. But initially, everything we get is going to have been, you know, uploaded in the last several months. So it's all going to be current to some extent. Okay, settings is, I think that's it. Workflow site history, again, could be a point of interest, but there's no, you know, value to you as an editor. You can just get a view of what's changed, what's happening on the site, but it's global. So if you're wanting specific history yourself, you're going to need to configure some filters and whatnot. Like I said, perhaps not particularly useful straight out the gates. And so settings, just clicked on this. Redirects, if you don't have a lot of experience already with redirects, you're perhaps not going to need or use these a lot. Or if you feel that you might and you're unsure what to do, then I just suggest contacting, you know, myself or Joe, or that cuh.connect@nhs.net mailbox and getting some assistance. Really, this happens, redirections happen automatically if we choose to move a page in Wagtail. So you might be thinking, oh crap, you're sort of moving a page from somewhere else, from A to B, and therefore you might need to create a redirection for that old location. You don't need to worry about that. Wagtail will manage that transparently and just take care of all of it. Where you might need to create a redirection is if you're actually deleting a page and you are sort of manually transferring the content somewhere else. Wagtail then has no way to know unless you set the instruction to redirect traffic to that new location. So that could be where you need it. But like I said, you perhaps don't need to worry about how to work it, just to be aware of it and to contact the admin team to get assistance with it. Something you will have contact with, though, is the management of your collections. So I touched on the images and documents. They're collections, basically. You can think of them as folders. They're called collections within Wagtail. And this is the one we've got set up for this training group. For you, once you're live on your sites and you've got your live permissions, it's going to be different for everyone. It will be called editors. Actually, sorry, it won't be called editors. It will just be called what your permission group is, collection. And that's where you're going to store your images and your documents. And for your own management of it, you may decide that, look, it'll benefit from some subfolders or sub-collections, and you then be able to add them, delete them, manage them here. I'll just quickly do it. For the demo. Great, that. It's pretty intuitive and straightforward, and you'll work out what's valuable and what's not for you as an editor. And help is general. This is put out by the vendor, so it's not specific help guides that we've generated for CUH. Tony touched on it. We're going to have our support pages that will have the sort of micro videos, tutorial videos that will guide you through different steps, and we'll have some PDF documents as well to give you assistance. But this gives you a good global overview of Wagtail, and it could be a useful refresher. And it's right there. If you're editing and you're trying to do something, this could be something useful to dip into. It's really going to be the first sort of 4 elements down to images that are relevant to us as editors, and the rest of it starts to become more admin focused. But it's there, and something you can refer to. And right down the bottom, hopefully most of you already had access to it. This is where you'd go in to manage your account credentials. So you've received emails which have given you this generic password to log into here. And then we've asked that you go and change it to a password of your choosing, and you do that from here. Okay, so the main now thrust of this demo is going to be around the pages and the choosing or the creating of pages. So I'm now going to get back to that initial dashboard that we all loaded on. And I do that by clicking on the little Wagtail icon up top left of the screen. Click on that. takes us back to this home page. You're seeing some recent edits here that you probably won't be seeing on yours. So this is my profile. It's always specific to your view of things. So clearly I've sort of made some edits or testing with the account that I'm logged in now. So I've got a view recent edits. You'll find this is actually really helpful. I've kind of talked about other ways you navigate to your page, you drill down, you search for it. But really, if you're kind of working on a page and then you go away and then you've come back, this is where you're going to see it presented. And that's your best shortcut, just to log into it here, to click on it, and it will take you to the page. For us though, or the pages we've got, I've not done anything on them so far. So I need to go to the, well, it's either one of these pages. I'm going to the training demo homepage, clicking on that. It's now showing it the training demo homepage. I can edit that, I can make changes to it. And it's basically this gray bar up here. And at the moment, it's calling itself root. It's represented as root because it's the single root that I have permissions for, or we have permissions for in this training group. Once you've got your live permissions for your live pages, you may find that you've got pages that sit in different groups. So there's not an actual single root for you, in which case you'll see the page represented under its page name. Equally though, you might just have a set of pages which do share a common root, a common sort of home point, and therefore you're going to see it represented as root. So if you wanted to make changes to that page, to the root, to the sort of home on owning page or parent page for all of your sub pages, you just hover over these three dots here. Presents actions. You can either edit that page, the move, which we've talked about. You could move it to a new location, copy, or you could create a child page. And that's what I'm going to do here, just to show you through the next steps. So I've clicked on add child page. And now the next thing we're being asked is what type of page do you want? So you're choosing a template style. And for us as editors, it's information page or team page are really the ones we're primarily going to use. Information page, I'd suggest, is the one we're going to use the most. Pretty much, yeah, the vast majority of pages that are already on Connect are information pages. These other pages, although we can see them as editors, and we could actually go through the process of creating something for them, they wouldn't get approved and published on Live Connect. These are really for the admins of the site to be using. The exception to that, I think, could be the form page. You might actually go through the process and create a form that you're wanting to use. It would still need to go through the administration step because they need to make some email configurations for it. But that could be something that, you know, it's worth you going through the process, understanding what information you're asking for the users to submit, etc. So that could be something worth doing, but it's still got a large admin component to it. Whereas these others, information page and team page, although they'll have an admin approval step, it's you who will sort of drive what's going in there and how they're configured and how they look. So for this demo, I'll click on the information page first. I'm clicking on that, and now we see the skeleton that I can start populating my content into. I'm seeing one, you can kind of see as soon as I tap on a field and it becomes active, it's highlighted. I can also see it's got an asterisk next to it, which is indicating that it's mandatory. So we can see these other fields, and if I scroll down briefly, you see they don't all have asterisks next to them. So we've got two components on this page seemingly are mandatory, meaning something needs to be put in them to create a valid page. So if I'm going to say first page title, and actually, yeah, I'll give a quick demo to say, if I save this, if I click on save just to see what's happening, I'm getting an error saying, okay, I've got one validation error here on this page and one on the promote tab, which we'll go to in a moment. And I scroll down and I see I've got some descriptive text here to say this field is required. So it's another mandatory field that I've not filled in. And then actually another quick visual check we can do on, do we have a valid page, is to go to the preview panel. So I've just moved my mouse up to the top right-hand corner, hovering over the little mobile phone icon. I click on that and a preview panel expands out. And it's basically just showing the device type views that we can get from this panel. That little mobile phone, we've got the phone, we've got a tablet, we've got a desktop monitor, which at the moment, most of our pages are going to be viewed near entirely on desktop or laptops at the moment. But once the intranet becomes available off the CUH network, which is the ambition we've got, that people will be able to use their NHS Mail email address, log into that just as an end user, and then they'll be able to get access to it from their home devices, from their mobile phones. At that point, then it's really going to be worthwhile checking how your pages are presenting and how they look and how your information is sort of structured using this preview panel. You can quickly click through and see how they're looking on different devices. At the moment, though, we're getting this message saying preview is not available, cannot display due to validation errors. Click save to find out what those errors are, which is what I've just done. So we know we've got one here that it's lacking a field that's required. So I'm just going to choose paragraph, and I'm going to come back to these fields and go through them in more detail because they are the main show in terms of creating content. So I'll just call this placeholder just to get something in here. I'm clicking save again. So I'm clicking on the green button down the bottom of the screen. Okay, I'm still getting a red validation error up top of my screen, but I'm no longer got the red number appearing on content. I've only got one, which is appearing on promote. So I click on the promote tab, and I'm going to scroll through just to a quick peruse and see, am I getting any error warnings here? Which I am. I'm getting a saying that I must have a listing summary. I must specify a listing summary. And I'm going to put in some placeholder text there. And then preview screen has now started to display automatically. And that's because I now have a valid page. And if I click on save, we'll see that I get a green banner up top confirming that the save has been successful and I no longer have any errors occurring over here. I'll just go back to promote just to quickly go through this because we've opened it up already. So we've got a mandatory one up here for the slug. And although this one is mandatory, it doesn't have an asterisk. So that's something that I think it became mandatory later in the process. So it doesn't have an asterisk applied to it yet, but you saw that message, and it's pretty clear once you do try and save, if you've left this blank, that it's not going to succeed until you've actually populated it. At the moment, I'll put in placeholder text, but for you, once you're editing with live pages, make sure that it's meaningful text, that it actually explains what the page is about. And it can be really brief, but where this is then used is in the intranet search. So if you type in, I'll go to another page, a live page rather. And if we type in something in search, I'm actually going to demo this with Old Connect as well. Type in search for pharmacy, and then this text in black down the bottom, that is that listing summary text. So you can see it's really brief here. Doesn't say a great deal, but at least gives the user, when they've searched for that thing, some orientation of which page am I looking on? Is that the one I want to click on? Is that? So that's what the listing summary text is. And the reason why we've made it mandatory is because on the old Connect experience, we typed in the same word, pharmacy. We're seeing these first two entries. There's no context. That could be the page we're after if we're wanting the sort of pharmacy homepage, but we're not going to know until we click on it. And no, it's not. It's something related to Epic. How about this one? Same deal. It's another Epic thing. There's no context. There was no sort of forced context for it. And we found that was a point of frustration. So on the new Connect, it is forced. You do have to put something here. You'll probably find, like me, you'll just put in some placeholder text initially, and that will then make it valid. But if you left it as placeholder text and then submit to be published, we're going to see that it will be reviewed as part of that process, and it will basically be returned to you to say, put some actual valuable or descriptive comment or context on that listing summary. These other fields, I think when you look through them, you might see them and say, okay, it's talking about search engines. They're all external, so it's not relevant to us. This product is used not just for intranets, the Wagtail content management system, not just for intranets, but generally across the internet, where Google search engines, Bing, things like that, they crawl websites, and they're looking for things like this, the title tag and meta descriptions. But those search engines won't crawl our site, so there's no sort of need for this content to be used or to be populated. It's pretty much just the slug up top and this listing summary, which is used by our internal search engine sort of indexing. And then these other elements that you'll see there's actually more details here, listing title, listing summary. I'll leave that with you to play with. You basically don't need to put it in there. It's not mandatory. You might find that it's useful and you sort of like elements of it. The listing title could be a case that you're perhaps using a very long page title for your page, and you want that page title to stay long, but you kind of recognize the listing title might benefit from being shorter, so you can kind of create a one that would be used specifically in a search return. But yeah, by and large, we're just leaving them blank and going with the default pages. I said I was just going to say what that slug was. So that top mandatory field we've got up the top, that's a slug. Basically, it's the words that are tacked onto the end of the URL that are specific and unique to that page. And if you're trying to use a slug or create a slug that's used somewhere else, you'll kind of get a flagged warning that it's used, and you've got to make yours more unique. And you can, like I said, this is automatically generated from the page title. And if I made this longer, and I go back here, then this is automatically, adapting to that. Once you've published it, once this page has gone live, then this won't change even if you change your page title. It kind of then becomes fixed unless you manually change it yourself. And the sort of scenarios I can think of is if you do have a particularly long page title and you kind of think, look, the slug doesn't need to be that long. There's no character limit on it. It's not like you couldn't have a very long slug, but you, for neatness, may just decide that the main thing is not all the secondary bit of it, but you just want it to be a shorter slug, and you can do it. You leave your title as is, but you've created your sort of bespoke slug. So that's it for the promote, the sort of metadata side of things. Back to the content, the main show for us as editors. I've done the title here. We're seeing it populate over here. The hero button we're leaving enabled by default as part of the standard look that we want, and it relates to this purple box that we've got around content, around the title, sorry. Introduction is optional. It just it places the introduction at the top of the page under the title and also under child pages at the moment. So if you've subsequently got child pages, they'll list up above the introduction, but it'll always be anchored above everything else that you might subsequently add onto the page. So it's good from that point of view, but it's limited in terms of formatting. It will just display in a single sort of continuous line of text. You can have full stops in there and some spacing, but you can't put line breaks or italics or any sort of customization of the text itself. It's just going to display in this font, in this size. This is intro text. And you can see it's starting to display here. I'll put this into to the tablet form just to more closely approximate what it would look like. If I went to the, I mean, this is useful, I use it all the time, but if I went to this screen, I'm sure this isn't displaying particularly well for your view. So if I leave it on this, we can see that the text is a bit bigger. Saying that, I'm going to go back to this, onto the mobile phone display. You can see that the text is bigger, it's a heavier font than this placeholder text I put in the paragraph. This is intro text, but just say I then want some page breaks, and I want this to be, this is the second paragraph. So in my view, my editor view, I'm seeing this with line breaks and some spacing, but in terms of how it's then displayed on the page, there's no line breaks or spacing. It just says this is a full stop. The sentence then continues on immediately after the other one. So that's fine if you are just got a couple of sentences and you're treating it as a true introduction. But as soon as you start to get to a point where you want it to be a bit formatted, I'd imagine you should just start to think about using something in the actual body of the text and using something I'll go down to now, which is a stream field. So I clicked on the body, I clicked on this little plus button, and it expands the menus of things that you can choose from. These elements are the content design elements that you'll use as editors. And I'm going to go through some of the key ones for these. I'll go through the heading, the paragraph, images, touch on the embed of videos, documents, horizontal rule, expander, call out card, and tables at the end. But using the intro, if we're wanting the same thing, so if I actually just copy and paste this down into my paragraph text, I've added a new piece of paragraph, I then paste it into paragraph. You can see how it displays there. It's actually picking up and respecting my line breaks, really. And then if I wanted to give this some heading type emphasis to make it bolder, bigger, if I then want to italicize these words, it's giving us these rich text formatting options that we do not get for the introduction. And as well, if you decide you are actually using a paragraph for your introduction and you don't want an introduction, just leave it blank. It's not compulsory. And then the paragraph text bumps up into that same position. So kind of from a user point of view, it would be the same effect. And it's just down to you as an editor of which you prefer and which is most useful. Something I do find useful for introductions, if you've kind of gone to the effort to think of, right, what's that brief sentence which almost introduces the user to this page and gives a description of what it is, you might find that same introduction is actually perfectly good to be used as your listing summary, in which case do it by all means, just copy and paste it here as well. It's not like it will appear duplicated anywhere. It will just, that listing summary will only appear when someone searches for it. And then if they then click through and land on the page and they sort of see the same intro again, it will almost have a positive impact for them, because they'll sort of be certain this is the page that they were expecting to be on, and that's where they've landed. But there's no downside really to reusing that intro text as part of your listing summary. The caveat would be that you might have actually fairly dense and long listing text, and that wouldn't really be appropriate from a listing summary point of view. You want to keep it brief and to give the user a quick idea of what the page is about, rather than force them to read something before understanding whether it's the page they want or not. So intro, the paragraph box or stream field, that's a key one that you're going to use frequently as an editor. And some of the components, so I've just been clicking and adding more stream fields, repeat pieces, but I've shown you that we've got the formatting that we can do with it, and then I could be turning this into a numbered bullet point, dot bullet point, but the next key one, so I'm clicking on these little icons and you can kind of get a sense of, do you like the way it looks? And I'm just changing between them. If I wanted to remove it, I just click on it again. I'm highlighting, selecting the bits. If I decide I didn't want that italicism, I just select the bits that's italicized and get rid of it. So it's a fairly straightforward and intuitive user experience. So we're hoping that it's going to be a much better user experience than GOS that we found for people who had to try and understand how GOS needed you to do something before you could actually do it. We're hoping with this it's all going to be familiar, and you can quickly, even if you go weeks and months between editing, you can kind of quickly refamiliarize yourself with how something works. As I was talking there, I just highlighted the text and I clicked on this little link icon, which is for links. And so that's about turning that highlighted text or adding a link to that highlighted text. And it could be to another page, an internal page, connect page. I click on that, we can see it's got a little link that's appearing next to it. That's just our view as editors. So, we've got very little text here, but if we had quite a lot of text, this will give us a visual cue that, oh, there's one of my links. That's something I need to update because, the destination of it has changed. And I can then either click on it or highlight it, and then it populates and gives me the option. Do I just want to get rid of that link? And I just clicked on remove. But I could also edit it and change it. If I clicked on edit, it would just bring me back to this screen. And I might think, actually, I wanted that link to be external. So, an external web address, a URL. I type in google.com. That would be it. It would create the link around it. Same if we want it to be an email. If it was going to be an email, it would need to conform to an email address. If I try and insert this, it will fail because it's not valid as in terms of what an email address should look like. Whereas if I just said, whoops, I clicked out of it, sorry. Email address. That would now conform because it's got, something before it and an @ and then like a valid domain afterwards. I'm expecting that shows as a valid email address because it's technically valid. It's not actually valid, like we couldn't send an email to it. So there's still, responsibility on us as editors to make sure what we're putting there is correct, but it does at least sort of check us and make sure, that it's technically valid. So yeah, we can do things like that. The phone links will become useful when we've got mobile phones, or so we're able to browse the Connect on mobile phones because we can have a phone number in here that we create a link for it, and then when a user clicks on it, it would automatically populate their mobile phone. They wouldn't need to manually type it in. So that's going to be useful. And then anchor links aren't active at the moment, so ignore them. Basically, I think it will probably let me insert it, but it serves no purpose. We can't then reference it and use it as a true anchor link. That's still pending in development with the vendor. But and that's not just us for CUH. That's a sort of global development thing they're looking to do for Wagtail. So they're really key elements of paragraphs, these links. So definitely spend time playing with those, becoming familiar with them. Looking quickly through some of these other elements. Images, So we touched on the image collection folders over here at the left when we're looking on it. I then selected the image stream field, clicked on that button, a little block appears here, and you can kind of see I've done it now, I've duplicated it. If you do that, there's no downside to it. If I try to save right now, it's going to throw up validation errors because I've created blocks that I haven't used. So I may as well save just to show it. I'm getting 3 validation errors. I scroll down, it's sort of telling me saying, look, you've tried to use, or you've started to use a stream field element, but you've not used it at all. Like it's blank, it's now invalid. You find something like that, just do some housekeeping, you can clean it up, get rid of it. I've got a duplicate one here. I don't want this one. I know I'm actually going to choose an image, so I'll leave it in. And then I'm clicking on choose image, and this now takes us to, oh, okay, yeah. So now we're seeing all of the images that are available on Connect. But we as editors may just be more interested in our, our respective collections. So, we can see collections that we've got here at the moment. For us, we've got our training collection. That's the one we have permissions to upload, to edit, to delete images from. And so that's the one, I was looking over at the left-hand column. This is our images collection. And that could be where we want to upload, or sorry, choose an image from. But that said, we do have visibility of other images as they're occurring across the internet. And we may find that actually, no, that was the one. I wouldn't use the flower, but you may find one which is the image you want. You're accessing it from somewhere else. So you can use it. You can kind of choose an image from somewhere else, but you can't then do anything with it unless it sits in your collection. And that involves uploading it and being the owner of that image effectively. Right now, I'm just going to click on this image to show you how it displays. It's limited at the moment in terms of, we can't really scale this. This has happened automatically. Wagtail's chosen the scaling of it to keep it consistent with the layout of pages of the page. I'll just give you a bigger view of this by clicking on this little box with an arrow here that shows it and opens a new tab. When we can see it's got preview up the top, so it's showing us a preview tab. We've not published it, but it gives us this view, and you get a sense for, okay, that's how the image displays. I think down the track, we might at least get some flexibility around our images. We may want it to choose from some options, be it small, medium, or large. At the moment, though, like I said, it just scales this image to say, the width of the text body that it has at that time. So it may be fit for purpose for you, or you may just sort of decide that it's not worth it. But again, what's the image ad? Is it worth having it? Do you need it? If you don't, then don't have it. It's sort of just creating space that someone's got to scroll over to get to actual useful information. The dual image block just places them side by side. I think Joe and I, neither of us has really worked out a reason that we might need to use it. You as an editor might discover it and it makes sense and you use it, but it is just like we just did then. It just upload one image and then upload another, and it displays them side by side. Embed is, you can see, so it doesn't actually say video embed, but you can see it's got a little circle with a play button or a little triangle, which often represents, you're playing something that's going to move, could be an audio file or a video file. Now, they're not actually hosted on Connect. This is actually just us linking to that file, which is hosted somewhere else. So YouTube is going to be, for video, is going to be the most common point that they're hosted. If you don't have access or a YouTube channel that you manage within your team, then contacting the CUH Connect mailbox is going to be the way that we can get that uploaded to a sort of trust-based YouTube channel that you can then link to. And it's a matter of, you're putting out, I don't have one I can show you, but just you're putting in a YouTube address here, some caption description of it, and then you're having to choose an image as well. So at the moment, you would perhaps expect it to say, well, YouTube has an image, it's got a still frame that it's selected from the video, and it's just there. Won't that just pass through? It actually won't. You've got to manually kind of grab a screenshot of it and then save that image, upload it to your image directory, image collection, and then choose that image and add it here. So there's some steps that hopefully over time we're going to streamline, or the vendor will streamline. But at the moment, that's how you'd need to do it if you're embedding a video. Embed video quotes, I'm not going to go on, leave those to you to play with. So too with call to action. We'll touch on this at the end actually, so we will see it. but documents are going to be key things that you're going to work with. So we've got two options here. The process of using them is identical. I'm going to add both of these stream fields actually, and then just show you a side-by-side of what they look like. You could upload a single document for both of them. It says multiple documents because it's being configured to sort of take up less space. So it's aimed at use for multiple documents, but you can use it for a single document. So the process is the same. I've added the stream field shell that I now need to make active or valid by choosing a document. And the same as with our images, where we could see all of the images across the intranet, we can see all of the document collections at the moment. And so, not just ones that we own or manage, but for everywhere. And that's been because there could be the document you want could exist somewhere else and you'd find it largely by searching, not through browsing. We know there's hundreds of documents, so it's not going to be a matter of clicking through the page trying to find it. It's either a matter of searching for it, finding the document that you want, or knowing that you've uploaded the document yourself to your collection and going to your collection, which for us is the editor training demo collection, and finding your document there. So they're preloaded, they were uploaded previously. So I'll just add that test document to the single document stream field, and I'll use the same document and add it to the multi-doc test document, go to our preview screen. Actually, I just clicked on this little sort of pop-out window to get my tab to load, and basically it didn't. I sort of like there's a flick on screen, but it wasn't loading. That's an indication to you as an editor that there's a validation issue or error on your page, and you probably won't know where it is until you actually hit save. You get the little prompt up here. It's not managed to save. That's because there's validation errors, and it's because I had that field. I dropped in the video stream field and then didn't use it, and so I need to clean that up, delete it. And then as soon as I deleted it, this preview actually updated. And even though I've not saved, it's now a valid page. So preview's working. I click on that view tab option, and this is it. This is how we see the two videos. So this, the two document displays, the way they displayed. This one was a document, and this one was a multi-document stream field. So you can just see it's a more compressed version, exactly the same documents, does the same thing. If your user clicks on it, it's going to present the download option. This one gives a nice little visual cue that this is something downloadable, but you may just make decisions that, look, you don't want this much white space or screen real estate taken up, so you use the multi-document option. But that's your choice as the editor. And clicking on this, opening up stream fields again. Go down to the bottom. The call out card is a useful way to add a little gray outline box around content. So don't overuse this on a page or on your pages. If you've got a call out card, really one on a page is the limit you should be aiming for, because if you're overusing it, then it's sort of point of the whole purpose of it to try and to highlight key important information starts to become devalued, and it just becomes something you're using just because you like the look of it, rather than actually having an impact and focusing the user's attention on important information. So I'm just going to quickly put in some text here, heading text, and then body text. We're seeing it display on this screen, which is difficult to see. And I'll go on to this actually loaded out page. You can see here it's butted up against the document outline. This is a bug that we've got with the vendor. We need the margin basically to be some white space buffer between these two. So at the moment we don't have that. So until it's in place, and that it could actually be sort of late April, May before we've got that sort of these changes made, or the vendor's got these changes made. So you as an editor, you might need to just make a design decision of saying, look, you don't want this call out card to be right adjacent to a document stream field. And if that's the case, then you'd move it. And this is part of the power of Wagtail, is it lets you move these stream fields around and change the order of them by using these little arrows. So you can see there's an up or down arrow. At the moment, this is the bottommost stream field, so I can't take it any further down. I can click that and it will start to take it up, and we'll see in the preview that it's dropped it up there. I want to take it up again. Just scrolling up a bit. seeing it moving up again, and now it's got some nice white space around it. But I could, take that up to the top or move it back down if I've decided it looks better lower down. This is what you'll do as an editor. You'll sort of play with it, experiment with it, and it, a real positive of Wagtail is that it encourages that sort of experimentation to get it looking the way that you want it to display. Just one last thing on this, we'll see that the heading, it looks no different from the body text. And that is because for some reason default, even though it's a heading and it's given like a heading level size effectively, it default means that it's just like regular text. If I change that to small, see the heading text suddenly became bold. So if you're seeing it's not displaying the way that you want, then that's what you need to do, just change the heading size to something other than default. You could add an image to this box, and you can also add a link. You could add an external link, an internal link, page link. The thing is, it can pretty much only manage really one link, though, using this method in this page. So if you've added a link, what am I trying to say? It will then generate a clickable heading for you. So, it's limited to one link because that heading then becomes representing of getting to that location. So if it was linking to the communications page, I should just show rather than talking it through. That heading itself becomes the link that I could then click on. Not sure why that hasn't worked, but in text, click on that, takes us to communications page. You could also see that sort of the size of it changed. And again, that's for you for experimenting. You may kind of want to play around with it a bit. This, I'm not really sure why this is just the previews refusing to connect. Ordinarily, you can test your links within that preview panel. I might just clear the choice, see if that. No, it hasn't made a difference if I'm just going to another screen. Okay, I'm not entirely sure what's happening there, but I'm thinking when I save, it should reload the page. The previews come back. If you do, again, if you sort of things don't behave in the way that you want, don't panic. Just save is your friend. Always keep saving your versions as you go. But yes, saving also tells you what might be going wrong, or it could just, clear out some misbehavior that we just saw then. Okay, realizing the time is marching on, I'll get to the end of these stream fields and then show you off the rest of the page. Expander, this is something that you're probably familiar with FAQs, where you've got something, a topic, and then you can expand out a box underneath it. And it's got the information that you could use. That is what these are. So you're putting in a heading, you're putting in body text here. And then let's just go to the tab. So we can see a little plus. It gives you the user an indication and say, hey, there's more information here, expand it. Useful, you could have a whole bunch of sort of pieces of information that perhaps don't warrant their own page. So rather than making a user click on a child page link, go to another page, think, oh yeah, that's very interesting, then hit the back button to go back to your original page. You could just have it as little expander text, and that could be an efficient way of packaging your information, your content. So they're useful. A horizontal rule is a nice little way just to break up your text. It's just a grey line, unremarkable, but it scales to the device, and it can create some separation to help you, or help you chunk the information for users. That's good. Now, tables, these are useful. This rich text table is just new to us today. So I'll start with the standard table. It's, again, a useful way to present your information, to keep it sort of tidy. Again, like call-out cards, don't over-egg it. Don't sort of have everything in tables, and because it just creates almost a noise for the user to try and to read through and scan stuff. A paragraph could be fine and just leave it as that. But that said, it can be a nice, neat way to organize news information. Title, role, name. This is all garbage headings that I'm putting in. Sorry, it's all garbage. But what we're seeing, we're doing this in the got the preview. We're seeing it start to populate here. First thing you'll pick up is like, oh, hang on, it's giving title, role, your headings basically. It's kind of just treating them as data. The reason is because you've got to tell it that it's got a row heading. So click that box there. Clicked it. It now knows, okay, anytime that I'm seeing title, row, name, title, role, name, that's a heading, and I'm populating the subsequent cells underneath it as the data for it. So that's how it looks. It's just a neat way. That's in a tablet device where it's kind of compressing across screen. If you went to an actual desktop page or a laptop page, it kind of keeps that horizontal formatting that we're seeing in the display. So it's nice for organizing information. Downside is if we had an email address, so if this was email or contact, and we put an email address in here, we can't link it in this standard table format, which is not great. That's something that ideally you'd have it so the user wouldn't have to copy and paste it when they were on the page. They could actually just click on it and it would open up the email in their browser and pre-populate it. So we've put that to the vendor, and what we've come back with is something that was existing in Wagtail. So this isn't shaped or designed the way we want it. We're expecting this to be refined by the vendor over the months ahead. But at the moment, this gives us that rich text ability to create links within tables. But you can see I've just clicked on, here's the stream field. I want to add a rich text table, which is the thing that allows links, and it's blank. There is nothing here. You've got to build the table from scratch, column by column, row by row. And a benefit of this one, going back to the standard table, is I could have copied and pasted a whole bunch of information from Excel. And although I can't copy in here by right-clicking it, I'm not given a copy option, I could use a keyboard shortcut, do Control-V, and this table would just expand out and kind of capture all that information. Cannot do that with these rich text things. You really have to create it cell by cell. So let's do this title, adding another column. This is going to be the role column, adding another column. This is going to be the contact. And here you see the same deal. Like what's the information that I'm wanting in here? I've got to put it in cell by cell. I've just hit tab. It's let me go across there. That's good. Okay. And we can see it's displaying down here pretty much identical to the standard one above it. So visually, there's no gain in using this. It's all about the functionality that where we've seen before. I then highlight that name. It then gives me the rich text option, the ability to create an email link around it or whatever the link is that you've got. I'm doing that. This is, obviously not right. We're just using this as a placeholder. But this then becomes a link that subsequently the user could click on. Boom, it populates their mail client and they're good to go. If you then want to change this table, click on the rubbish bin, it gets rid of that whole row. Click on that, gets rid of the whole column. It's crude, it's clunky, but it ultimately can help you do what you want to do, with the table. So if you're wanting to delete rows and columns here on the standard table, jumping back up to that, I've right-clicked on it, brings this pop-up menu, brings the inserts, obviously we're familiar with, and you remove a row, I'd get rid of it, it then tidies this up. So this one's a better user experience, but it has less functionality. This one has more functionality, quite a horrible user experience. That's tables. Knowing that we're going over time, I'm just going to close out the other elements of this page and then briefly open the team page, which was the other one I touched on. Has all the same sort of stream field elements. So you kind of become familiar with one, you're going to be skilling yourself up for the other one as well. So it's time well spent looking at both of them. But the other elements on this, the information page, add theme, ignore that at the moment. It may be something that's used in future, but it's something we just got out of the box and we're not currently using on the site. We've kind of got some almost placeholder themes that we've got populated, but they're not active. We're not searching or filtering or doing anything by them at this stage. So you can ignore it. Related content is a way of displaying, your sort of related content as it says down the bottom of your page in a grey block that gives it a distinct look. But you as an editor will need to work out, is it useful? Is that where you want your related content to be showing up? There's a limit of 3 of these blocks that you can add to this page. And yeah, like I said, it's you as an editor who will decide, is this good? Am I liking how this is presenting to the user? Or would I prefer a more familiar sort of block up top of the page in the right-hand corner that we're more familiar with from Old Connect? And the way of doing that is just adding it as another link. So I've just jumped over Merlin documents now, gone to these links, clicking on this, choosing a page, adding the exact same pages that I just added for related content. And we'll see how they display in here. What was it? Was an illustration? I can't remember. But This is on the tablet display, so you can see that it's sort of not putting it off to the right, it's running it in a vertical format. Pretty much anything that goes beyond that desktop view of things, where we've got the more landscape orientated screen, is going to start vertically stacking it. And Wagtail manages that itself. It's not us as editors who kind of say, oh, I want my links to be down the bottom or in the middle or somewhere else. Wagtail just locks us into it. But what we can do as editors is work out, well, hang on, this image is taking up a vast amount of space on a mobile device. Is it worth it? Should my heading text be somewhere else? Yeah, we can kind of alter the body text based on what we're seeing with these different views. But the actual sort of structural elements of the page itself, other than content, we can't influence that. It's all set by the Wagtail content management system. So, and this is it, other links, we're seeing them display here. That's same deal. These are internal pages in the more familiar position off to the right. That said, you may think that, you know, for whatever reason, that it's the related pages, you kind of want them presented at the bottom. You may decide that you want to do both. Just to kind of, again, caution, less can sometimes be more. Is it helping the user? Is it confusing them? Is it, you know, making clear what they want to do or need to know? But yeah, you as an editor will work that out. So Merlin, I skipped over the Merlin links. Now that is a way that all the Merlin documents that exist, there will be an equivalent snippet that will exist in Connect. At the moment, it's sitting at around 5,000. I think there's sort of some more that need to be added for the last month or so. But these snippets are sort of managed centrally, and they'll be put in place either by the Trust Documents team or by the communications administrators. If I'm clicking on these, you kind of see that there's a list. There's 500 pages of, you know, 10 on a page kind of thing. So there's over 5,000 snippets, but they all exist and they all sort of map directly to a document in Merlin. So it's going to be a useful resource for you as an admin, but as an editor, but it means that you need to know something about the document in Merlin that you're linking to. You can't just sort of create a link yourself or copy and paste the link. You need to find what that document is that you want to add link to. And I'm going to do that just by quickly going into Merlin and finding a document that is see, type that in there, save administration. This is the document that I want to link to. It's a long name, so I can either, you know, copy and paste it. I've opened the document, I can get something from it, use the name of the document. I mean, it's so long, I'm imagining it's fairly unique. There's only going to be one type of document with that title, but I don't think there's a requirement that titles have to be unique in Merlin. So you may find there's, you know, more than one document with the same title. A way to be sort of sure that the thing that you're linking to, pointing to from Connect is the thing that you want on Merlin is by clicking on View Record and capturing its document ID. So 430. These are unique. There's not going to be duplicates of these within Merlin. And if I then type it, oh, sorry, I just clicked out of screen there. If I type in 430, then there's the document I want. I click on it. I'm adding it as a snippet. It appears here in the little box off to the top left, which is familiar to us all because it's quite similar to how it looks in old Connect. So that's how we as editors would add Merlin links, but the actual, as in links to our pages, but the addition of it or the creation of a Merlin snippet, that's managed somewhere else. So if there's a document that you've only just uploaded to Merlin, there may not be a snippet created for it yet. And that could sort of trigger you to make contact with the comms team or with the Trust Documents team to say you're looking for this equivalent snippet and it's not showing on Connect. Okay, and then the final one, call to action. I'll briefly show it to you. It's something you may never use, might choose to never use because it takes up a vast amount of space on the bottom of the page. I'd say it's more designed for, there it is. I've just done this. We could have a link in there in this blue box, but it takes up loads of space and you think, what's that communicating to the user? What's it give them? But like I said, it comes out of the box with Wagtail, but be really judicious in whether you need to use it or not. And I'm going to just quickly, oh yeah, sorry. So gone through this, we've got the page looking the way that we want. We've been saving drafts as we go, and then we want to publish it. So that step is on this green box down the bottom. There's a little arrow to the right. I click on it, submit to moderator's approval. That is the trigger for this page to start its process for getting published. It goes to the administrators of the site like Joe, myself at the moment. and they review it, we review it, and we'd be looking for the key things about what's that description like? Is it document appropriate? If you've uploaded a bunch of documents that are apparent that either they should be on Merlin or they actually are on Merlin, you're going to get challenged on that. But a quick sense check of what you've got in terms of the structure and use of the key or the mandatory elements of the page, and then we'd go through and approve it, and it would get published. I think that a reasonable question is, how long does that review process take? I think when we're in a BAU point, it will probably fall around a 2-day period. But at the moment, we've kind of got a different focus and intensity, so it's turning around much quicker than that. For as we're doing handovers of live pages, editors are quickly getting on, going through, making reviews and changes. We're kind of turning it around within a few hours, and it's coming back and the page will go live. So I think that's reasonably what you can expect during this handover period. But then once you're in BAU, unless something's sort of flagged by you as urgent, and that again is going to be some communication with us, letting us know that this page needs to go live, in whatever time frame, that can probably be accommodated, but there'll need to be some comms around it. Otherwise, you can just kind of work on a sort of 2-day turnaround time for things that you've submitted. Look, that's the key information about pages. I am going to show you a team file page just to kind of call out some different elements to it. So just to recap, I just went to root, I clicked on the 3 dots beside it, and then chose team page from that actual pop-up menu that appeared. Looks familiar. We recognize, the panel's the same, the preview option, a title for team page. Same deal. If I clicked on this to save, that's the only mandatory element for the content panel. But the promote, the metadata still has a listing summary. You've still got to say something about it. Test summary. And then we see, right, this theme page has started to become valid and it's starting to display in preview. It's got a grey box. It's got a bit of a different feel than the information page and the other pages actually that typically use the purple banner, hero banner. Here you could add a hero image. So talking about, what's useful for teams to use. When's a useful time to use images? We could conceive of like a team image as being a reasonable image to be including on a team page, because the whole thing of it is the team page is to introduce the team, to help staff understand who they're communicating with, what they've been delivered and stuff like that. So it might make sense that a team image gets included on this page. So then that was just displaying up top in the hero banner. So you might hear that mentioned in future workshops and stuff, talk about that hero. It's a sort of focal thing. What's the thing that's going to, act like a hero, capture attention, things like that. But same deal, you could include an image in the body of the content, and you just be using stream field elements just like we did on the information page. And they're exactly the same, tables, images, things like that. But a team page gives you the option of creating a little hero image up top of your page. And then introduction, same as the information page. Where to find, this is unique to team page. This is sort of some free text. You could actually put in some descriptive information about how to find where you are. You could just put in a building address. It's up to you as the editors on how you make this useful. Contact number, as the name suggests, you can just put in numbered field. You might end up having a few contact numbers, so you can put in text in here as well. So that's not going to prevent you, but it's there for your numbers. Downside to this at the moment, it doesn't let you to rich text it to kind of make it that number that a user could just automatically have populated in their mobile phone. I think we'll get to that, but at the moment it's just raw text that enters up and displays in there. Email addresses, does a validation check just like we saw on the other ones. It's got a former @ and use the .com, have a proper domain that's displaying there. This does hyperlink, so you can then click on that and it would populate into an email browser. You could have multiple ones, but you've got to add them individually. You wouldn't just run them all on from a single line, so it would add further emails. So these are unique elements to the team page, box number. And over time, these are all going to be located under our structure. And over time, we'd look for this to be really well populated, for sort of a good level of teams to be represented, to have these informations and hopefully become a useful resource for the users. Just scrolling over, we've looked at all these, looked at the key ones from the stream fields. Team type, at the moment, we're not actively using it, but I would ask if you can kind of remember if you can make a distinction between whether your team's clinical or non-clinical. I kind of anticipate this could be something we set up a filter for in the not too distant future. So if we've already gone and populated, that would be really useful. Related team pages kind of goes the same as related content that we saw on the information page. You're kind of, except you're limited to team pages. You'd be creating that network of links down the bottom of the page. Equally, you could just use other links and you could create a box with the links to team pages that are related, or any sort of page. Actually, it wouldn't be limited to just team pages. Communication's always going to that well, and you'll just see it populate off to the right. It won't at the moment because it's invalid, because I've kind of opened up fields that I'm not using. And somewhere in there. I think that's it. Merlin documents, we've seen them be added, exact same process. And I'm just going to try and save this. I'm not sure why it's not validating. So you will find you do this. Like, why isn't my display updating? What's happening? Oh, because I opened up an email and then didn't populate an email field. So get rid of that. And now it's starting to update and show information there. Whereas that was whistle stop. I know I've gone long.